Welcome back to the Table Rush Talk Show, where we dive deep into the world of entrepreneurship, marketing, and personal growth. I'm your host, Mischa Zvegensov. Today, I'm actually bringing you something a little different, a replay of my interview on podcasting secrets with Nathan Gwilliam. Nathan had me on his show to talk about my journey from making over 1 million cold calls in the mortgage business to walking away from it all to raise my sons full time, and how that decision eventually led to creating this very podcast you're listening to now. In this conversation, I share the hidden podcast metrics that most people miss, the 3-sentence pitch email that lands me on shows everywhere, and why true influence starts at home before it ever shows up on the airwaves. So let's jump in. Here's my conversation with Nathan Gwilliam on podcasting secrets.
After making 1 million cold calls as a telemarketer, Mischa Zvegensov watched his career collapse, lost both parents within weeks, and weathered a devastating divorce. Yet today, his Table Rush Talk Show ranks in the top 1.5% of all podcasts worldwide. Without equipment, marketing teams, or social media tricks, he cracked the hidden algorithm, controlling podcast discovery. In our conversation, Mischa shares the simple 3-word email that lands him on shows everywhere, and the unexpected strategy that helped him outperform 98.5% of podcasters, despite starting with 0 listeners. If your podcast isn't growing, despite your best efforts, this episode might just contain the breakthrough insights you need. Welcome to the Podcasting Secrets Show, where successful creators share their best stories, secrets, and strategies. I'm your host, Nathan Gwilliam. Today I'm here with Mischa Zvegensov. Did I say that right?
Amazing.
Mischa is the Chief Influence Officer at the Influence Army. He is the host of a top 1.5% podcast. How amazing is that? That means his podcast has more traffic, more followers than, 98.5% of all the other podcasts on the internet. Congratulations. We're definitely going to talk about that. His show is called the Table Rush Talk Show. Thank you so much for being with us today, Mischa.
Indeed, Nathan. Thank you for having me here. Thank you for sharing your stage, your audience. It's going to be a ton of fun.
Can you start off by just telling us a little bit about yourself outside of podcasting?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. 2 sons, 22 and 24, Cooper and Waylon. Cooper's the 24-year-old. Waylon's the 22-year-old. Waylon just turned 22. They're both actually February babies. The craziest thing about that is I no longer have a 21-year-old at all. Like, both my sons are over. They're firmly in their 20s, and it kind of freaked me out. So,
Are you an empty nester now?
pretty close. My one
Yeah.
son's out. The other one comes by a couple nights a week. What else? I do a ton of yoga. I live by the Pacific Ocean, so on the Pacific coast in Encinitas, California. So super active lifestyle, always outside. People always think I'm super tan just because I get to walk a lot outside. What else could I say? Those are the key things to know about me. I'll give you one third thing. I've been in the recovery community, so sober off of alcohol and drugs since I was 17 years old.
Congratulations. That's
Yeah.
so cool.
It's so cool, right? So I'm always out there in that community serving for free. So I mentor a ton of people that are trying to, kick drugs or alcohol, however you want to say it. I speak on panels all the time. So just super active in that community. And it's a really cool way for me to give back.
Can you tell us about your journey to become a podcaster and become this podcasting expert that you are?
Yeah, sure. The bulk of my career, I was a salesperson, and I was a home loan officer from 2001 to about 2015 or 16. That was the bulk of my sales career. Super successful. Telemarketing. I built telemarketing teams. I used to hand dial 150 to 250 calls a day. It was silly. And then there's auto dialers and things like that. And then I was like, oh, I can hire people to dial the phone for me. I've literally made over 1 million phone calls, getting people to answer the phone, flyer campaigns, get the phone to ring, love scripts, things like that. And you'll see how this all comes together in a second here. But back in the day, so what's this? The When I was learning my sales chops and then going into mortgages, I used to listen to guys like Brian Tracy, Zig Ziglar, all these type of what I would call old school sales guys. Um, but anyway, I went through what I would call my divorce, failed relationships, death, career upheaval years. And what happened was I went through a divorce, career. I just burned out in a massive way. Both my parents died within a couple weeks of each other, and then more failed relationships, i.e., I'd gotten another girlfriend, moved her in, that imploded, and I went through this massive existential crisis. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, what am I doing with my life?" And
And I can't
uh,
imagine how doing 1 million phone calls would burn you out well either.
oh my god, I used to talk on the phone so much. I'm really good at it. But I don't know. I know you're growing your business. You've spent a lot of resources and time and effort in building a team, and it can get heavy some days, can it?
Yeah, and it feels very lonely too. It feels like you're carrying this really heavy weight, and there's not a lot of people to help you carry it when it feels like it's too much, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And as I was heading into my mid 40s and all this stuff happened, a lot of the way I looked at life, my hand was forced, shall I say, the way I thought about life was challenged. Common beliefs that I had were challenged. Bottom line is I was like, God, I need a new career. I need to know what to do next. And I had a whole bunch of money in the bank. Um, and God was like, hey, you got to retire and get your boys through school. You've got resources that you've been saving. And I was like, anything but that. I
Don't
talked
you
to
love it when God answers our questions with something completely different than what we were asking?
yes.
You're asking this career question, and he says, "No, go focus on what really matters with your kids."
Yes, and I just yeah, as I said, anything but that, and I just hit the point of I had that moment of clarity of I in effect inventoried my life. There was a guy named Kyle Cease who's really cool, big into meditation. I love meditation, journaling, stuff like that. But he basically said, he said, inventory 100 things you love, 100 things you know. So literally make a list. 100 things you love, 100 things you know, understand, and are good at. Okay. And so
Okay.
I'm inventorying these lists and I'm like, oh my gosh, I love getting my boys to school and making their lunches and doing all these kinds of things. And at the time I had started volunteering at their school. So I was reading the classes, doing things like that, and loving it. And then I like that early morning cup of coffee, things like that. And then you end up with 400 things. And what you do is you put a check mark next to the things that lighten you up, and you don't put a check mark next to the things
Yep.
that weigh you down. And I just had that moment of clarity of, oh my gosh, I love getting those boys to school. It's my destiny right now. I got
Yeah.
the answer was driven home, if you want to say it, right?
You caught
Uh,
God's vision.
yeah, I caught God's vision. There you go. Thank you. So I went in the next day to my boss. I wish I could remember his name, but I go into my boss and I go, "Hey, boss, I quit. I'm done." And I was very successful as a home loan officer, and he goes, "Mischa, we'll match any offer you're getting out there. Like, we wanna keep you." And I said, "No, you don't understand. I'm done. I quit. I'm retiring to get the boys through school." And he stone cold looked at me and said, "Mischa, I wish I could do that too." And I was like, "Oh, I'm making the right choice, you know?" So anyway, fast forward 5, 6 years, boys are graduating, they have their girlfriends, their jobs, their college lined up, and it's time to get back in the game. I've always loved sales. I've always loved marketing. Really, one of the things I'd wanted to master and I'm still working on is speaking on stages, is creating that table rush. So you present to an audience, you
Yep.
get them all frothy and excited, and they run to the table to buy your offer, right? And so I fall in Russell Brunson's funnel, and naively, I've got all his books right there, of course. I love Expert Secrets. I'm always in Expert Secrets. I use his framework on teaching frameworks to teach the classes that I do and things like that. But naively, I jump in and I think, oh, I'm going to master this online marketing thing. And I'm going to bring all this old school sales tactics into the new school of online marketing. And one of the first things that Russell Brunson says is start a show. He says, start a podcast, start a blog, or start a YouTube channel. And I've always
And he
loved
makes a
sound.
promise that goes with it too.
Yeah, he does. His
That's
promise
why I
is
started this whole business, was that promise that he makes. You want to
right.
talk about the promise, or you want me
I
to
would
talk about
love
it?
to. Yeah, no, I believe the promise is, or what I heard was publish every day for a year and you'll never have to work again or worry
Yeah, you'll
about
be
money
financially
again.
free. Yeah, something
Yeah,
like
yes, yes. The financially free part, has it monetized to the point where I feel like I'm financially free? That's a great question. I would say no, but what it has, I started my podcast, what, 4 or 5 years ago now, have 700 and some episodes in, really starting to figure out how to monetize it now. But really, I know I'm God directed. This is the thing. I know I'm doing the right things. I know I'm headed down the right path. So the the financial shiny object doesn't occupy my mind so much. If that makes sense. Go
yeah.
I'll let you speak to that for a second.
So when I was selling my last business, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've built and sold 3 ventures. And when I was selling that last one, adoption.com, I heard that. And so I started a show and I published every day for a year. And I did audio and video and social and blog and website and all of that. And I went all in, and man, it kicked my butt. It was so bad. Um, and but by the end of that year, I had I had $4 million of net worth as a direct result of doing the show. So it worked for me. And now, is that enough? Am I financially free? Do I not have to work another day? No, I'm still working my butt off right now. Um, but it did wonders for me and my career. And I'm running 2 shows right now, and they make a difference. They open doors. I talk to people that I could never talk to any other way. If you want, every business owner wants to work with influencers. If you do a show, you can invite the influencers on and build relationships of trust with them, and then a lot of them invite you on their shows. It changes how business is done. It's a credibility strategy.
Love it. I have insane credibility these days. It is crazy. I don't take advantage of the full opportunity that I have with my podcast, and that is starting to build now. That's part of 2025, 2026, sort of my vision for that. But the confidence it's given me, the ability to jump on your podcast right now, you can literally drop me anywhere at any time and say, I want to interview you. And I could say, what's your podcast about? And it doesn't matter. Like, let's
Yeah.
rock and roll. I'm ready to go. So to have that confidence, but all those sorts of things you can't even put a number on that. And what do I want to say? When I started my podcast, I had no vision of a business. So what it's done for me is helped narrow the path. It's helped, oh my gosh, I get to test so much material. I get to, I get to use it to brainstorm ideas. I could go on and on and on, but those are some of the things that it has done for me over and above any of the financial ramifications. Yeah.
Can I go back? Can we actually talk about a topic you brought up before we move on that I think is a really important topic? You addressed being there for your sons and getting your sons through school. And I spent a lot of my career working with adoption, and I'm aware of some pretty ridiculous statistics of fathers that choose to be involved actively in their kids' lives, fathers that are present with their kids. These are just a few of the statistics I'm aware of. Their kids do a lot better in school. They graduate at a much higher rate. They get higher grades. They're much less likely to drop out. There's a lot less negative behaviors There's a lot less crime. There's a lot less teen pregnancy. Mental health is a lot more improved when the father's in the home. Um, lower rates of depression and anxiety, for example. A lot better positive social, emotional development, better self-esteem, better social skills, future success. Kids that have fathers in the homes, they have more stable future employment. They're much more likely to achieve financial independence. Um, they have a lot lower risks of delinquency, substance abuse. Um, there's just so many outcomes that are better. I mean, if we want to change the world, that factor of having a dad at home can change the world probably more than anything we can do in our country. And so my hat's off to you. I assure you made a very meaningful difference for good with your boys and for generations to come.
Absolutely. I call my boys now. Again, they're 22 and 24. When I call them on the phone, they answer. And if I go to voicemail because they're busy doing something, they will call me back within the hour or 2 hours or whatever it is, if they're in college class or whatever it is. As a father, as a human being on this planet, that is the most amazing thing to me. Everything else is almost irrelevant. I'm like, I know when I pick up that phone and I call, they're excited to talk to me most of the time. Sometimes they're busy and they're like, what now? But to have that, or they call me and ask me questions, they ask me life advice. What's really fun right now is Waylon, again, he's 22 these days, is he uses me as a sounding board for his ideas that he wants to bring out into the world. How cool is that?
Yeah. You have
It's really,
influence.
yeah,
You're
I
talking about
really,
influence army. You're this
yeah,
professional influencer, but the most important influence you achieved was with your family.
yeah. And so just listening, I do a ton of listening. I think as an adult with kids, especially if they're grown-up kids, we need to develop the capacity of like shutting our mouths and just listening and then wait for them to ask for what they want from us. It's very powerful. So if they want advice or if they want feedback, and maybe that's a few day arc, maybe your adult child calls or your late teen, whatever, teenager starts asking you questions. Can you be quiet until they've said what they need to say over a span of a few days to go, oh, now, what do you think about that? Like, what do you think about what college I should go to, or whatever it happens to be? I'll tell you, one of the most powerful moments when I knew I was doing the right thing, Waylon was probably, I don't know, 14 years old. I'm sitting in the living room and keep in mind, it's very clear to me that my job is to be available for my boys, hold space for them. You can say it a lot of different ways. And so I was not working at the time. I was teaching yoga, but was super flexible and I could sub and teach whenever, wherever I wanted to. But in effect, I was 95% available for those boys. And so I'm sitting in the living room one night, just sitting there. I was probably reading or something. Waylon opens up his bedroom door, looks out, sees me in the living room, sees that I'm there, closes the door, and
Yeah.
goes back to doing his
Everything's good because you're there.
everything's good because I'm there. That was quite a thing.
By the way, your hair is so great.
Yeah,
I'm sure you get a lot of comments about that.
I do. My hair has been it's been a gift for me in many ways. I get lots of comments on it, and it's actually a door opener sometimes. It is so funny. It's you would I don't know. Anyway,
So, Mischa, can you share with us one of the most challenging things that you've gone through as a podcaster and how you got through that?
when I started my podcast, I had delusions. I had illusions or delusions that my audience would grow very fast or that it would take off like wildfire or I'd be the next Joe Rogan or insert your favorite podcaster here. And at the beginning, it very much felt like I was talking to the void. I'm like, is anybody even listening? Right. And it took me some time to find my voice. So one of the biggest challenges was getting that momentum to keep moving forward. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Am I saying
Mhm.
that right? Yeah.
Maybe it was expectations. Maybe you had expectations for yourself, and our happiness only exists to the point that our expectations are met. And
Yeah.
and you kind of had expectations for what probably wasn't that you weren't doing a great job. It just wasn't what you had expected going in. So how did you manage those expectations?
Because I'm looking back at it now, and I was pre-prepped for this a little bit, where I knew we were going to talk about this a little bit, but it's funny. I thought I was prepared, but I wasn't. And you can leave this on the episode. It's the reality of podcasting. It's the
Yeah.
reality of conversations like this. Um, I had a lot of compare mode when I started my podcast. I didn't have a clear vision of where I was going, what I was trying to do, how I would monetize it, how I was going to build my business, right? And so I was just like, I just need to start my podcast, start talking and see where it goes. And I think some of the better podcasts out there are when the podcaster is more focused. They have their vision dialed in. They have their messaging dialed in. What am I trying to say? They're more focused. Their topics are more in line, things like that. And so as I'm sort of meandering and rambling and trying to find my voice and doing day after day, I think I published 450 days in a row or something insane like that. And I'm not seeing these results, and I'm comparing myself to other people. If I'd have met you, Nathan, when I started my podcast, and you just said, "Oh yeah, I did this for a year and I made $5 million," it would have blown me to bits. Like now I can listen to it and be like, "That is amazing." But when I was in the heat of the battle, trying to find momentum, podcasting every day for a year, it would have devastated me, and I would have quit because I'd have compared myself to you.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's a long answer to that question, but key is, number one, I reframed my purpose. So instead of trying to chase numbers or fame, I reconnected with why I started. And that really was to get better at speaking, to clarify my message, to find that direction, to have the path narrow. So when I was focusing on that, it was like, hey, this is like dialing for dollars. Like I know that if I put in 5,000 phone calls, I'm going to get X amount of leads. I'm going to get X amount of customers. I'm going to get X amount of deals.
Today's episode of Podcasting Secrets is brought to you by Pod Allies, the done-for-you podcasting services solution. When I speak with CEOs about their podcast, one of the most common comments that I hear is that they know they need a podcast, that they don't have time. Have you ever wondered how some businesses find a way to still run their podcasts while juggling their crazy day-to-day operations? The secret might be simpler than you think. Let me introduce you to Pod Allies. This is a service that's changed the game for businesses in the podcasting world. Pod Allies is a done-for-you podcast production and marketing service. They understand that while many businesses understand the immense value podcasting can have for their business, finding time to produce, syndicate, promote, and monetize a show can be challenging. Pod Allies offers a dedicated team to handle virtually all aspects of your podcast production. From strategy and branding to audio and video editing and guest scheduling, they've got you covered. They even take care of creating blog posts, transcripts, and syndicating your content across multiple platforms. What sets Pod Allies apart is their use of PodUp, their proprietary podcasting software suite. This allows them to streamline the entire podcasting process, saving you time, effort, and a bunch of money. If you're ready to become a thought leader, connect with your audience, and grow your business through podcasting without all of the investment of time and cost of doing it yourself, Pod Allies might be the perfect solution for you. To learn more or to schedule a free consultation with a podcast expert, visit podallies.com. That's podallies.com. Now back to the show. Almost no podcasters are successful in their first year. You're laying the foundation. You're finding your voice. You're finding your audience. It just takes time. Joe Rogan was not super successful in his first 5 years. He didn't even look at analytics his first 5 years. And it just takes time to get where you are today. But now you've gotten there. So let's talk about that a little bit. What are the most important secrets and strategies that have helped you to get to be a top 1.5% podcast?
Okay, so let's talk about podcasting really quick. If you are on Facebook or you're on YouTube or you're on social media, it's public facing where the public can see how popular you are, right? You can see on YouTube how many subscribers does a YouTuber have on their channel, correct?
Yes, you can easily see that. It's
How many
embarrassing when you do an episode and it doesn't get very many views. I
I
felt that
know.
before too.
I know, right? Um, we can see how many followers you've got on Instagram or Facebook or things like that. The thing about that's really cool about podcasting is that how popular you are or how many downloads you have or how many listeners you have are all behind a wall. So I could literally say whatever I wanted about my podcast. I could say, I've got the best podcast in the world. I've got the most downloads in the world. And you, Nathan, or anybody watching and listening, can't actually find that information. It's not readily accessible. Maybe you can search deep and hard, find it. So there's there's companies out there like Listen Notes. So anybody watching, listening can go to listennotes.com and it gives you a Listen Notes score. As far as I'm aware at this point, Listen Notes is probably the best podcast rating service out there, if you want to say that. So anybody watching, listening right now can go to listennotes.com, type in your favorite podcast, and there will be a Listen Notes score. And they say it's a proprietary model dependent on how many downloads the podcast has, how many, 5-star reviews, blah, 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 blah. So if you know that, you can do a lot of information with that. So credibility, we're talking about credibility. And I love that you're like, man, you've got a 1.5% podcast. How amazing is that? And Listen Notes validates that. And you know who Listen Notes is, right? Amazing. Number one hack for anybody watching and listening on Listen Notes, one of their main metrics of rating your podcast is how many reviews do you have? Apple reviews, actually. So I can even get really specific. So people are like, get your Spotify reviews. That really doesn't matter so much. It's great ego wise, and it does help because people go, oh, you're so popular on Spotify. But Apple reviews. So anybody watching, listening, if you want to get that Listen Note score up so you can get all the fruits of that, everybody you talk to, have them rate and review your podcast. That's number one, longevity. So the next one, I believe, is the amount of episodes you have. So if you've been around for a while, have a lot of episodes, that helps a lot too. So don't give up. Do an episode a day for a while. And the other, of course, is downloads. So
That episodes a day thing does really matter. I know it's a lot of work and it's a ridiculous amount of effort, but it does matter. You find your voice and you find your followers and you build these relationships so much faster if you can invest to go daily.
absolutely. My podcast was top 10% at one point, and I had this thought. It was about a year and a half ago by now, 2 years ago maybe. It was like, what if I actively tried to increase my Listen Notes score? What would that look like? And so I actually created a little framework where everybody I talked to would go, hey, if people would say, what do you do? I'd say, I have a podcast. And they say, oh, you do? What is it? I would say, pull out your phone. Great. You have Apple Podcasts. What's that? It's the purple one. Type in podcast, right? Because if somebody pulls out their iPhone and you can search your apps, type in podcast, it pops up. I go, great. Type in Table Rush Talk Show, 4 words. It pops up. Great. Follow it. Awesome. Right? That helps increase your Listen Note score.
Yeah.
Awesome. Do me a favor, 5-star it. Okay. And then I'd say, hey, you want to write a quick review? And they're like, well, I haven't listened to it. I want to be authentic. And I'd say, totally makes sense. Don't write anything if you don't want to. But what you could do is just write something about me right now that is the truth. I just want the truth. So they'll go, oh, what a nice, charming guy, or whatever, Anyway, so there's a quick hack for anybody watching, listening. Yeah. And I'll fast forward. So I went from however many reviews to a whole bunch more. I think I'm getting close to 100. Listen Notes, Apple Podcasts. It's actually pretty interesting. If you are on America, Apple Podcasts, it shows you how many American reviews you have. If you're on Australian, I have a surprisingly a lot of amount of Australian listeners for some reason, but I have a lot of Australian reviews, but you can only see them if you're on Australia Apple Podcasts. Does
Oh,
that make
that's
sense?
funny. I didn't realize that was a thing.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, I could go on, but there you go. But yeah, so yeah, now I'm top 1.5, tons of reviews, more followers. How active do we want to be in growing our podcast? I guess would be the big lesson, right?
So the key takeaway is understand the algorithms that are really move the needle and where people are really discovering podcasts. What does it take to show up higher in those ratings? Then game that system a little bit and show up higher, and then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy where they show you more and then more people go to your show and you become more popular.
That's it. You got it.
That's really smart.
Yeah, thank you.
Like SEO from the old days. That's the new SEO.
Yeah, it's the new SEO. So check this out too. Here's some thoughts. I just want to riff on this really quick. At some point, and it might be happening now, it probably happens more than we think. Podcasting is just getting more competitive as more people come into the space. You could literally buy somebody's podcast, put your name on it, and now you've co-opted their rankings. I think we're going to see a lot of that happening where people sell their podcast to somebody else. So now you've got your rankings, you've got your 5 stars, things like that.
Yeah.
You change the name of your podcast and everything, it changes, you keep the rankings, stuff like that. Another interesting thing that I think might happen in the industry, if we think about in the 1900s, TV, radio broadcasting came up, right? And for a while there was NBC, ABC, CBS, and it was all Federal Communications Commission, FCC. Like you had to have licenses to be on the radio. You had to have licenses to be on TV or to have.
I'm so glad we
TV
don't have to
stations.
have licenses to do
I know.
podcasts. That would be horrible.
But check it out. What if that's coming? What if that's
Oh.
coming? That's a natural arc of how things work, right? So perhaps you already have one you're grandfathered in. You have one that's successful and has a good base of listeners, listen notes, scores, reviews. All of a sudden, that is a very valuable asset.
Well, I sure hope it doesn't go that way. That would sure restrict a lot of good things that are happening on this platform.
It would. I didn't mean to plant that seed in the universe.
Yeah.
Anyway, continue on. Thank you for letting me rant about that.
Okay, so we've talked about growth. Can you talk to me a little bit about monetization? What are some of the most effective secrets and strategies you've used to help make money from your podcasts?
I have started charging people to come onto my show. And that is what is as a literal revenue generator, right? Like you pay me, now you come on my show. That's amazing. A lot of work, blood, sweat, and tears. As a producer of a podcaster, as a podcast, anybody watching, listening, if you knew the work that Nathan and I and our teams put into this, you would not hesitate to pay to come on our show.
Because it takes us money to be able to produce and syndicate and market and promote these episodes, for sure.
Absolutely. That is one way I personally have done it. I have not gone the ad route. As far as a top of funnel lead gen, it's a great thing. Top of funnel lead gen. So when I say that, if somebody comes on my podcast, I can talk to them about what they're doing. Maybe they'd be a good client. The credibility aspect of it, it gets me on more shows. So think of it this way. I pitch to guest speak on a podcast because that's what I do. I'm always out there guest speaking on podcasts. Here I am speaking on your show, Nathan. Right. So I'll pitch them and say, hey, I want to speak on your show. And they say, we have a fee or something. And I go, well, how about if we do an interview swap, right? I've got the credibility of my show. I've got a top 1.5% podcast. And they're like, oh, okay, I'd love you to be on my show because I want to be on your show, right? So now I've got access to all these podcasts that I might not have. I guest speak on, so I've gotten on people's podcasts because of my podcast. Speaking on those people's podcasts, I've gotten direct referrals. So someone says, I've got a client for you. They need to know how to get on podcasts. Or they said, hey, they'll market my stuff to their email lists and things like that. So that's how I leverage podcasting, and it's awesome and amazing. Other people are like, I want to get ad revenue. Go get your ad revenue. That's a great way to go. But it's like the networking of are we in the 22nd century now? whatever century we're in. Anyway,
So Misha, I believe those are called sponsored interviews. Is what's the term for that?
I don't know what the term is for that. I need to know though. Maybe we can Google it while we're
Yeah,
while we're talking right here.
sponsored episodes, sponsored interviews. I believe it's one of those, and there's a couple of reasons why those work so well. Number one, 96% of people don't trust ads. People just don't trust advertising. So when we run ads, they're not incredibly effective. They are more effective on podcasts than they are in traditional channels by a lot, by a substantial amount. But when we allow someone to be the guest on our show, it gives them a level of credibility that they don't have as a advertiser on our show, and those people can often see a much greater return. So it's a win-win. It helps us make more money than we might have made off of just running an ad,
Yeah,
and uh, it allows them to get more credibility and more results from the placement than they would have got from an ad.
absolutely. I want to say as well, it's interesting. One of the hangups that I had when I was starting my podcast, and not starting it, but when I was doing all these episodes, is there's inevitably a bottleneck of getting that content out. So step A is to get the interview out or published onto the podcasting platforms. But then there's, repurposing that into clips and reels and TikToks
Yeah.
and blogs and newsletters and all these sorts of things. And I felt like I was failing because I was creating all these episodes, but not taking it to that next level. I believe one of your pod, here, I'll give you a little plug. I believe it's Pod Allies. Is that, or is it Pod Up that
Yeah.
automatically does all that for you?
Yeah, Pod Up is the software that has the 50 tools to do that, and then Pod Allies is the service that you can record the episode, and we take care of all the dirty work for you.
Yeah, yeah. So I realized that in the battle for content, I could literally never publish any of these interviews that I do. I'm having people on the shows that I'm on, but I have this incredible catalog of content that I can repurpose at any time. And
Yeah.
once I was like, oh my gosh, I'm just building a catalog of content that I can access at any time when the time is right. That is incredible. Does that make sense?
Uh-huh.
So thinking about it from people who want to be on shows too, they're like, yeah, I'm just trying to get content. They need to get on a show to create that content that's repersonable. So you and I, as a podcast host, we kind of hold the keys to the kingdom. So yeah, people want to get to our audience, but at the same time, we give them easy access to content that they can repurpose and spew out there, right?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you
Yeah,
for
for
listening
sure.
to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Uh, let's talk a little bit about podcast guesting. I know this is something you are an industry leading expert at, and you've got some secrets and strategies to help us. Every CEO wants to get on more podcasts, more relevant podcasts, and wants the promotion from influencers. Can you share with us your strategies to help businesses achieve that kind of reach and influence?
Number one, CEOs and their teams overthink the pitch to get on a podcast. They overthink it. And what should I literally send to the host to request to be a guest? We
Yeah.
overthink that, and we tend to not add enough value right in the beginning. If you want to get on Joe Rogan's podcast, you could write a 4-page pitch as to why you're so great. You're going to send that pitch in. It's going to go to an auto response. It's going to say, please fill out this form. Or here's the next steps to get on my show.
Yeah.
So you could literally, anybody watching, listening right now, just send an email that says, hey, I found your Joe Rogan podcast. Hey, Nathan, I found your Podcasting Secrets podcast. Are you looking for interesting guests? If so, what are the next steps?
Yeah,
It's
that's it.
simple as that. And then wait for the response. So here's the thing. When I started guesting on podcasts, I listened to lots of advice out there that was like, write these pitches, research the show, go deep on it, listen to episodes, tell them why you like the episodes. Like if you want to make 1,000,000 phone calls, you can't do that. If you want to send out 1,000,000 pitches to get on shows, you can't do that much work. Excuse me. I'm crossing
Yeah.
an analogy. So, or for that, there's an analogy for you, but I bump across this guy, Ron Story Jr. And I'm like, Ron, I'm getting frustrated. I'm trying to get on shows. I've got this message. If I do get it on a show, it resonates. And he's like, well, tell me about your pitch. And I'm like, here's the pitch. This is what I'm doing. And he goes, this guy, Ron, is incredible. He is like the OG of teaching you how to get on podcasts, how to get on stages, conferences, things like that. He goes, Mischa, he literally told me to send that pitch that I just told you. He said, ask them if they're looking for interesting guests. And if so, what are the next steps? And I said, Ron, that's way too easy. And he said, just do it. And so I started doing it. And oh my God.
And do it a whole bunch of
And
times.
do it a whole bunch of times. Right. Now I do get more creative, but whenever I start overthinking the process, I go back to, hey, are you looking for interesting guests? I literally send them all the time. So I'll find podcasts on the fly. I'll be going along. I'll stumble across a podcast. And instead of logging into systems to have AI write the pitch and do all this stuff, I literally am just like, hey, I sent one the other day. And they replied back, hey, we love guests. Fill out this form here. Right? Like, hey, Beth, I found your show. It's awesome. What are the steps to be a guest? Fill out this form. Anyway, I'll stop.
Yeah.
There's one. Two.
That's a great strategy.
Yeah.
Thank you. Just do it. Just get out and
Just do it.
get numbers.
Absolutely. If you feel the need to be more, if that's too easy for you and you're like, that's too easy, I can't do that, then really you want to make sure you're adding value for the host. So as you're crafting your pitch, you want to say, hey, Nathan, and you can argue about what you should put first in the email, but it's like, hey, Nathan, here's 2 sentences on what I do. Here's how it, and then 2 sentences on here's how it would serve your audience, right? Are you looking for a guest? That kind of a thing, instead of like the full book. I think no one has time to read the full book. So, hey, here's some credibility. Here's how this credibility will serve your audience. Or here's how I'd like to serve your audience. Here's my credibility. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So I love that. The other thing that Ron Story taught me, which was so incredible, and we can fight about this all day. Some people are like, find the 5 podcasts and do everything you can to speak on those 5 perfect podcasts. Ron said to me, hey, Mischa, if you could speak to a captive audience of 10 people who were interested in what you were doing, would you do that? If I could put you on a stage right now, would you do that? And I was like, of course I would. He goes, quit overthinking the process. There's all these mid-level to small podcasts that have 100-person, 200-person, 300-person, 400-person audience. Like, those shows are valuable too. And I'll drive the point home right here as well. We searched The Rock. He goes, Google The Rock. So we Google The Rock, and like The Rock's on Joe Rogan, whatever he's on. And then he was on like these most obscure 100-person YouTube channels. And it was like, what? And I was like, if The Rock can do it, I can do it.
Yeah. And those shows grow, right? And then people binge watch those shows, and it's just that many more opportunities to put yourself out there and get your incoming influence.
And I'll end this little riff with this. I think it's great to get on a show. It's obviously amazing to get on a show, especially if it's the big one. And that's the dream. I just spoke on Joe Rogan's audience, and some slice of that audience is going to be interested in what you talk about. So you're going to get some business. But what I teach my students is it all comes down to the questions you're asking the host at the end. And those questions are, oh, how big's your email list? Oh, do you also have a Facebook group that you teach to? Do you ever do master classes? Would it serve if we taught my podcast guest speaking master class to your audience? You want to promote it to your email list, things like that. Like, that's where the money is. The opportunity is. You can start doing rev shares. You can start doing JV things. You can start doing affiliate marketing campaigns. You can
coaching. Yeah, all sorts of
it's crazy. Yeah. So.
Okay. Mischa, it has been so great to have you on the show today. Thank you for the value that you've added for our audience, the secrets that you've shared. If our audience has enjoyed this interview like I have, and they want to know more about you and your services and your business and your show, what are the best ways for them to do that?
Awesome. If you are thinking, oh my gosh, I want to go guest speak on podcasts, go to guestingguide.com, and you can download my free guide on how to launch and execute a profitable podcast guest speaking tour. It's a free download, really cool guide, guestingguide.com. You can always reach out to me on LinkedIn. I believe it's Mischa Z. But if you just Google Mischa Z or Mischa Zvagensov, there's only one of me on LinkedIn. It's not like I'm battling for that name. What else was I going to say?
And your show?
Oh,
How
yes.
can they find you?
The Table Rush Talk Show. As you're watching and listening to this right now, pull out your iPhone, open the Apple Podcast app, and type in.
And be sure to write a 5-star review for him.
There we go. Type in Table Rush Talk Show, 4 words. And actually, you know what? My podcast has enough legs right now that inevitably, if you're typing it in my podcast in Spotify or Apple, you type in Table Rush and it just populates with my show. So there you go.
Thank you so much and have a fabulous day.
Thank you, Nathan. Cheers.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Table Rush Talk Show. For resources to help you sell your stuff, go to belove.media/resources. That's belove.media/resources. And be sure to subscribe, comment, 5-star, and share. Thank you again for listening.